Knon 89.3 FM in Dallas and Fort Worth, the voice of the people.
Business owners, tell KNON's listeners about your business. You can put your business or event on KNON. KNON currently has space available to run announcements for you. Tell KNON's listeners about your goods, services, nightclub, concert, or event. Help keep the voice of the people on the air while putting your information on the air. KNON's been named the #1 radio station in Dallas by both the Dallas Observer and D Magazine. Put your business with Dallas's #1 station. Call now for more information at 214-828-9500, extension 227, or extension 233. For more information, go to knon.org and click on the Run Spots on KNON page. It's a great way for your business to support community radio while letting more people know about you.
Good morning, it's the Workers' Beat. I'm Gene Lantz. The number here is 972-647-1893. And we're just like Reverend Barnett before us. We have to raise money to keep the station on the air. Whole bunch of stuff going on, as you know. Now, the filing deadline for the primary election is December the 9th. So if you're thinking about running for office, get on over there and sign up. Mark your calendars for November the 20th. A Black Friday action at the Walmart store in Lancaster, Texas at 150 North Beckley. It's right on the freeway, Highway 35. Join striking Walmart workers and show them that the community and labor is there in solidarity. The KNON Fund Drive is going on, and that's the main thing I'm fussing and working about today. So please get your checkbook and call us at 972-647-1893. In the meantime, another important event going on all over the country is the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and I brought Brother Kenneth Williams. Good morning, Kenneth.
Good morning, Gene.
What's going on with the Trans-Pacific Partnership?
The Trans-Pacific Partnership is something that American citizens in general need to be very much aware of. It is essentially a kind of NAFTA on steroids. This agreement, this trade agreement,
so-called agreement, yeah.
So-called trade agreement, will require member states to conform their laws to the conditions of the trade agreement. So, for example...
Wait a minute, you mean our laws won't make any difference? They're going to make up their own laws?
Exactly, because the agreement, once the government is obligated to follow the agreement, they will have to essentially start administering their own laws as though the agreement supersedes our law.
Their laws override our laws.
Exactly.
Now, how did they come up with their laws? Is this a democratic process? Were the people involved? Did we know what was going on?
The way they're doing it, and this is one of the scariest things about it, is it's almost totally in secret. And, for example, right now, members of Congress have not seen this agreement. They even had an occasion where Darrell Issa, one of your more conservative congresspeople, was turned down from being able to witness certain parts of the agreement. So they're really keeping this close to vest. And so now,
when we say they, who's negotiating this thing?
This is being negotiated by various governments. It has lots of corporate input.
Yeah,
so
I understand they had like 600 corporate lobbyists are allowed in.
They can see the agreement, yes.
And you can't.
We can't, and our representatives can't.
Right.
And so
the corporate lobbyists, in other words,
the corporate lobbyists are both
laws.
writing this, and they're the ones who have the inside track with it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some of the things you have to look at with this is we have to look back at what happened with NAFTA. With NAFTA, we lost about 5 million jobs, and we had about 45,000 factories shut down, and the wages are still stuck at the 1972 levels. And this type of agreement will enforce those kinds of policies, and they will make them even worse than they currently are.
You know, democracy is going to hell in a handbasket in America anyway. I mean, they're flooding the elections with money. They've got voter suppression in full-fledged. And now you're telling me that corporations are writing laws that override our laws.
Correct. And the way the agreement will be enforced is they'll have essentially their own kind of court system, these international tribunals. So if there's a dispute involving the TPP, it won't go to, say, the U.S. federal court. It will go to this tribunal which might have, say, 3 persons on it acting as quasi-judges, and these same individuals will also act as corporate lawyers. So they'll rotate. Some days they'll be advocating for the corporation. Some days they'll be refereeing for the corporation.
I can't believe it.
And that's basically the process.
So the team will be like one person against the other person, but one of those people is also the referee.
Yes. That's what we see coming down with
and
this.
They expect us to buy this. KNON needs your support and needs you to pitch in and help us keep this kind of thing on the air. You didn't hear this on some other radio station. You didn't hear that corporations are going to make laws that are going to override your own laws. You didn't hear that this is all being done in secret and even a U.S. congressman can't get in to watch what's going on. You heard this on KNON, and we plead with you to keep us on the air. Keep the Workers' Beat on the air, because who else is going to present things from the workers' point of view? Now, the workers are very upset about these so-called free trade agreements, but the corporations just love it. And who owns all the other radio stations? Who owns all the other television stations? Well, the corporations do. So they're going to be talking about this like it was just wonderful. We're here with Kenneth Williams, and we're finding out it is not wonderful.
Yes, and something else about this law, it doesn't have any expiration date. So often when you have a treaty, an actual treaty, or even with many of the laws we pass, there's a certain date where you have to go back and revisit it. Under this, there's no expiration date. Also, in order to change any of the provisions, all of the member states will have to agree to the change. So any change of a bad policy will be almost impossible if even one state wants to keep it going. So these kinds of provisions will override democracy, and we'll still have the form of democracy, but this trade agreement will take precedent.
You talked about these tribunals will settle all these disagreements that the participants have. Will that be an open process? Will people get in on what happens in those tribunals?
It's not clear if people will be able to see that, but if you take the example of how they're negotiating the agreement to begin with, I don't have a lot of faith that we're going to have a lot of visibility once they have the tribunals.
Mm-hmm. Now, I got a big question for you, because clearly, Kenneth Williams, you're an articulate spokesperson for your point of view against the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Now, I want to know who's paying you. Who put up the money for you to come in here on KNON and talk bad about the Trans-Pacific Partnership?
There's absolutely no money for me at all.
I got him that time.
I'm strictly a person that's volunteering to do this. I work with MoveOn.org, and that's how I became aware of the Trans-Pacific Partnership issue. And also, I also want to give credit to Public Citizen, because a lot of the things that I'm bringing to fore here come from some research that was done by Public Citizen.
Public Citizen does a lot of the research and that sort of thing.
Yes.
But you're not getting a cent to be here and giving out this point of view?
Not 1 red cent, no.
No, in fact, you work in some other completely different industry, don't you?
Yes.
That's the amazing thing about KNON and the Workers' Beat program, ladies and gentlemen. He's not getting paid. And I'm ashamed to admit that I'm not either. So what you're getting here is what we actually think. 972-647-1893. If you support that kind of thing, I mean, if you want somebody on that's not getting paid to tell you something, please support the Workers' Beat program at 972-647-1893. Now, for shy people who just don't want to call, here's where you send your check. First of all, you make out the check to KNON. And down at the lower left part, you might have a spot on your check that says for information or info. Well, there's where you put Workers' Beat. And then you send the check to KNON, 5353 Maple Avenue, Suite 200. And I don't care how you spell suite. I usually just put a number sign. 5353 Maple Avenue, number sign 200, Dallas, Texas, 75235. And the zip code, one more time, is 75235. Just send your check, and Workers' Beat will get credit, and we will continue to be on the air, and we'll be able to bring you things like Kenneth Williams, who is not getting paid 1 cent to come in here and explain the Trans-Pacific Partnership. I got a little note on the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Let me just check this with you and see if this is true, because I got it off the internet from the I got it off the internet from the AFL-CIO blog. And it says that Representative Rosa DeLauro and George Miller, both Democrats, wrote a letter to President Barack Obama, and the letter was signed by 149 other House Democrats. So I guess they had 151 altogether, opposing renewing the traditional model of, quote, fast track, end quote, trade promotion authority for the Trans-Pacific Partnership, TPP, or any other future so-called trade deals. What's fast track?
Fast track was something that was first started by President Richard Nixon, and the idea of fast track is that when there's a trade agreement, that the president take over some of the authority that normally Congress would have in order to make the trade agreement more quickly. And so an ideal that might sound
More quickly and less democratic.
Obviously, yes, much less democratic, because we would bypass some of the congressional hearings that would actually tell the people exactly what's in these agreements. And
so you wouldn't have congressional hearings.
Right. And the president could set a date by which it would have to go to the floor, and the various congressional committees would not be able to block it from coming to the floor for a vote. And
so what about amendments? Can they make amendments?
There might not be any amendments at all as well.
Fast track means that it's presented to Congress as a complete package.
Take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it. They have to vote on it.
Yes.
And in the case of NAFTA, they stayed up all night and did this thing in the middle of the night. It was stacked up. The papers stacked up were 6 inches high. They had just gotten it that afternoon. They had not read it, and they were forced through. They forced this through on what they call the fast track without any democratic give and take, or without even having a chance to read it.
Exactly. And when you look at the TPP, since it's all being negotiated in secret, the members of Congress certainly won't know what they're voting for if they bring it through under this fast track provision.
So 151 Democrats said we don't want the fast track.
Exactly.
And that's President Obama
that's
probably
a good
didn't
sign.
like. President Obama didn't like that.
Exactly.
Because the president negotiates these things. He appoints somebody to be his head negotiator, but it comes out of the executive office.
Yes.
And President Obama is supporting Trans-Pacific Partnership.
Yes, he is. And we need, especially people who have been supporters of President Obama, to let him know that we're not happy with this. I say, fill up his inbox, letting him know that you oppose this type of thing.
The whip is in the hands of the corporations.
Yes.
And the politicians may seem, just because they're rich and famous, they may seem like they can do anything they want to, but the truth is they're slaves. They are slaves of the corporations, because the corporations have so much money to get them reelected or not get them reelected, and to affect their careers or to make them rich. As you know, just about all senators are millionaires, and people in the House, a lot of them are millionaires too, because the corporations made them rich. So the whip is in the hand of the corporations. So if you want to make the whip stop, you're going to have to get out and do something.
You have to push back on what the politicians are deciding to do.
This don't mean you don't like President Obama.
Right.
I mean, he's doing what corporations are forcing him into, just like all politicians in America are being forced by the big corporations. And if you want to stop that whip hand, if you want to give President Obama a chance to not pass this thing, then it's going to take a big public outcry.
Exactly. And this is you have to understand that this is going to cost the American people money. When you have these kind of trade agreements, these international corporations will sue the government. They'll sue state governments, and taxpayers will have to pay money because supposedly some provision of the trade agreement has been violated. In fact, right now, under NAFTA, Americans have already paid $365 million based on lawsuits under NAFTA, and there's about $13 billion in money that's pending for lawsuits associated with NAFTA.
And that don't even count the losses of jobs and stuff like that. 972-647-1893. Please pitch in and help us at KNON. I know that Trans-Pacific Partnership may sound complicated. It may sound like it's kind of over our heads or something like that. That's exactly what they're hoping. That's why we get people like Kenneth Williams to come in to KNON and explain what's really going on and how it really affects you and how it really affects your pocketbook. You're saving money by keeping KNON on the air. That's a fact, Jack. You have to actually know what's going on in order to carry out your role in a democracy, and this is still a democracy even though the corporations are doing everything they can to change it into something else. So KNON's program, The Workers Beat, is very important, not only to just according to how you're feeling or something, but actually to how you're going to live, how things are going to be for you in the future. Are you going to have a job, or is your job going to go off to Poland or someplace? Are you going to be able to feed your kids or not? Or are they going to do something with these so-called trade agreements and make it impossible for you to make a living? So 972-647-1893. Please invest in the KNON and keep us on the air. I want to thank the many people who have already helped us out. I got this big long explanation here. It says it's from an anonymous user, and then it says thanks a lot, Joshua and Katie. So thank you, Anonymous, and thank you, Joshua and Katie, for donating to KNON. They said they wish they could give more, and I wish they could too, but I'm just delighted that they pitched in. We had donations from Reverend Ed, who's backed us forever and been one preacher in this town that don't just talk and gets out and helps people and makes Christ's message real. Thanks so much to Helen for a donation, to Annie, to Phyllis, to Deborah, to Bonnie, to Marshall, to Marjorie, and to James. Those are just the ones that they've been able to give me a list of so far. We are delighted that you are supporting KNON. We got a call from Michael, but we don't have time to put it on because we've got to take a break. We'll put Michael on in just a minute.
I got to work this morning. Something seemed kind of strange. My buddy Joe was missing. There's a machine sitting in his place. I turned around and I asked my boss, can you tell me what's this all about?
KNON presents the Hang Dogs Revisited Friday, November 22nd in the KNON Live Music Studio. Matthew Grimm, the founding member and songwriter from the legendary Hang Dogs, will perform an all-request set of your favorite Hang Dog songs. Opening up the show will be Ronnie Foss. We'll have free pizza from Mamma Mia's Italian restaurant, and this is a BYOB event. Tickets are limited. Doors open at 7 p.m. and the music begins at 8 p.m. Tickets are available at knon.org. All-request Hang Dogs Night with the founder of the Hang Dogs, Matthew Grimm, Friday, November 22nd in the KNON Live Music Room. Opening the show will be Ronnie Foss. We'll have free pizza and it's BYOB. This is a KNON benefit event. Tickets at knon.org. This is BP and I'll see you there.
In 1963, I was overcome by enormous grief. 50 years ago, President John F. Kennedy was my Commander-in-Chief. This is Lee Powell inviting you to a special commemorative event honoring and remembering the last days of JFK, Saturday, November 23rd at the historic Texas Theater. We witnessed the reflections and perspectives of President John Fitzgerald Kennedy while dining in the building made infamous 50 years ago. Celebrity chef Patrick Smith of Tejano Brothers' New Texas Cuisine will be serving the exact dinner prepared for JFK on the last night of his life. Come and experience the memories of this fateful and historic day. Seating is limited. Get your tickets today for this one-of-a-kind event. That's Saturday, November 23rd at the Texas Theater, 231 West Jefferson Boulevard in Oak Cliff. Doors open at 5. Dinner will be served at 6. Tickets are available at knon.org. This is a KNON commemorative benefit event.
This is Blue Lisa from KNON 89.3 FM. If you like what you're hearing and you want to help support great community radio, pick up the phone and call to make your pledge. 972-647-1893, 972-647-1893.
In 1961, I was in the Navy, and this was 1960, I'm sorry, and I got tickets to Fats Domino, and I don't know how I pulled it, but I got the prettiest wave in the Navy to go to see Fats Domino with me, and I danced right over to his fingertips, you know, because he was reaching for the high keys on the piano, and I love that man. He was the most fabulous entertainer you ever saw, and I was so miserable in the Navy, and I was so lonely, and there I was with the prettiest woman in the Navy and the best singer in the world. 972-647-1893. Call us and make a pledge. Is Michael on the air? Okay. Thanks for waiting, Michael, and thanks for making a pledge to KNON.
Yes, sir. How you doing?
All right. Glad to hear from you.
Oh, you know I'm always call in, and I want to say just a couple things. I always support people that are for people working rights and for all rights.
Uh-huh.
And I want to be all of it to be fair straight across the board. You know, no rich people pay you and you go do something for them.
Right.
Like the Democrats and the Republicans. Whoever pay them the most, that's what they do. But what I'm trying to say to you right now, find a better way to reach the young people, because most of those folks that work at Walmart are young folks. And what you're doing at Walmart is correct, but you got to approach it in a way to reach the young folks. You can't not call them out of their name because they don't understand your era when we had to fight to get workers' rights.
Uh-huh.
You have to come at them at a different angle so they can understand where you're coming from, because they haven't been where you and I have been.
That's sage
So
advice.
that's what we got to do.
That is sage advice, Michael. I'm gonna have to ponder that, because it takes a lot of thinking, doesn't it? I think he said his say. Well, I thank you so much, Michael. And Kenneth, Michael says that we should phrase this for the young people. Have you given any thought to this?
I think you have to do that, because these changes we're talking about, they're going to impact the young people more than they're going to impact us, because this is what they're going to have to live with from now on.
Uh-huh.
And what they have to understand, you're going to be losing things that we already have. For example, we have right now, under the Food and Drug Administration, we have certain rules about how food is produced,
right,
so that we know that it's going to be healthy. When you have something like the TPP, they're going to undermine those rules. They're going to say that you have to import food that may not meet American standards, food that might be produced, say, in a developing country that doesn't have the same infrastructure to make sure that the food is produced in the same way, safe way.
Because their law is going to override our laws.
Because the TPP is going to require us to let that agreement override our laws. And when I think about this, it would be, imagine if you wanted to rewrite the Constitution or make a major amendment to the Constitution, but you knew you couldn't get 2/3 of the House and 2/3 of the Senate and the signature of the President and the agreement of 3/4 of all the state legislatures ratifying your change, but you wanted to make that big change anyway. That's what this allows for.
That's why they had a
it's
fast track.
constitutional change by other means.
Call us at 972-647-1893. Please make a pledge. Kenneth Williams is explaining to us Trans-Pacific Partnership, and we just had a very nice call and a pledge from Michael explaining to us that we need to watch our language. We need to be careful how we explain everything. And I want to kind of go over some of the terminology used in this argument. First of all, we are talking about what the other side calls free trade agreements. Now let's examine that through those three words, free trade agreements. And Kenneth Williams, first of all, is it free?
Well, it's certainly not free to the American people.
Oh, it's free for the corporations, isn't it?
What it is it frees up capital to move in different parts of the world.
Right.
So in
it's
other words,
free for corporations, but it's not free for us.
It's not free for us. So the national boundaries and local laws will be overridden for those who want to send their capital to different countries around the world. But workers can't go anywhere in the world. You're still going to be subject to immigration laws. You won't be able to just pick up and say, I'm going to go live in Australia or Vietnam or what have you.
And actually it's even worse than that, because what we have now, certain labor rights, which could be overridden.
Exactly.
By these things.
It will override labor rights, because American corporations will have to compete with foreign corporations, say, for example, for government contracts. So if a foreign nation that doesn't have, say, our labor laws argues they can do the job cheaper, well, then those jobs will go away, and they'll go to the foreign employer who will be using a different set of laws and where the workers' rights will be undermined.
Let me give out the phone number, 972-647-1893. Please support this station. I am begging you. We need KNON to stay on the air, and we need to keep the workers' beat as a part of it. They will not keep us if we cannot show that people are listening and that people care enough to put us on. I was expecting a call from Leroy. Now, Leroy, if you're listening, you're supposed to call today, because I saw Leroy on Thursday, and he said he was going to call today and make a pledge. So I hope he's awake. 972-647-1893. Please call and make us a pledge. Now, we're going over the 3 words that they have used to frame this argument. Now, framing means that they can put forward an argument in such a way that there's only certain things you can say. There's only, it boxes you in, puts you in a frame. So what they call this is free trade agreement. That's the frame. We already said, and Kenneth just explained it, this ain't free for working people. It's a slave for working people. So let's change free to slave and go on to the second word here. Trade is supposed to be free trade agreement. Is this a trade deal? Is the Trans-Pacific Partnership and NAFTA that you talked about an earlier deal, is this really a trade thing?
It's not predominantly a trade deal. Only a certain small number of the provisions even involve trade. What it is mainly a way of bypassing the local laws that have been made under the democratic process. So this allows them to set up a legal framework they otherwise could not implement. Because if they told the voters, hey, this is what we want to do to you, people would vote it down. But instead, they do it quietly, secretly, and create a trade agreement. And they say, oh, it's free trade. And people don't really know what's in that.
Right.
And that's how they're trying to do it.
So it's not free, and it's not trade. We better let's finish this last point. Is it an agreement?
Well, it's not an agreement with the people.
No, because we ain't in. We're
not even involved. Exactly. It's an agreement among the various corporations who are involved in this process. And they're agreeing with each other, but the rest of us are not really included. But we will get a bill for it.
So it is a free trade agreement for corporations, but for us, it's a slave, undermining democracy secret.
Exactly.
That's what it is. Now, we shouldn't have let them use their words to call this thing what they call it. And the same thing, they use the word globalization. We shouldn't let them use that, because we need our own words to explain what it is. That's why I call it so-called free, so-called trade, so-called agreement. And that's what the Trans-Pacific Partnership is. Let's let Joshua talk. Thanks for calling KNON, brother. Thanks for making a pledge.
Good morning. Hi, Gene. Hello,
morning.
Kenneth.
Good morning.
I think it's really makes a lot of sense the way you're breaking down the free trade agreement. And I thought I might be able to contribute to the conversation with an example of the operation of a free trade agreement in somewhere different, which is in Nicaragua in Central America. I was living there. There were, along the main highway between the town I lived and the capital, Managua, there were these industrial parks that had big signs that said, in Spanish, it was a free trade zone, free trade area, right? And
so-called free, so-called trade area.
So-called free, right? These had it was capital, was money that was invested by there'd be the Korean flag, South Korean flag, China. A lot of different countries had put a lot of money into these free trade, so-called free trade zones. And I was riding the bus, I remember one day, to the Capitol, and people in front of me were taking the bus as well to work in this so-called free trade zone industrial park. And their conversation went a bit like this. They were talking about the money they were getting. They weren't talking to me. I was just kind of eavesdropping. They were talking about how little money they made at this industrial park and saying that it barely covered the money they needed to pay their transportation to get there.
Right.
Right. So this is the first time I ever really started thinking critically about.
So did the laws of the country you were in, which was Nicaragua, did the laws of that country apply in the so-called free trade zone?
That I don't know. I doubt it.
No, the answer is no, they do not. Not even their laws apply in what they call the so-called free trade zone. In other words, they set up a zone where the corporation law is the only law. So you're practically a slave. You get on the bus and get in there, and there's Joshua, true or false? There are big fences around these places.
Yeah. Oh no. They look like look like prisons.
They are compounds. They are concentration camps. And people go there. It's true they go willingly because they're getting paid because the pay is so bad.
They're
everywhere
desperate.
else.
They're desperate in many of these countries.
But from the time they get off the bus till the time they go home, they're slaves.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's going on in these so-called free trade zone. That's where all the textiles and that's where most of your clothes are made and stuff like that. And the countries, those poor countries, give in to it. In Nazi Germany, they had the same thing. They would set up what they didn't call them free trade zones, they called them what they were, concentration camps. But from the time you got there until the time you got out, you was a slave. And that's all there was to it.
I think we should remember, too, that not all the countries welcomed these kinds of trade agreements. Remember, in 1994, on January 1st, 1994, in Mexico, in the area of Chiapas, the Zapatista movement basically took over an area of territory and said, look, we oppose this free trade agreement, NAFTA. We're going to create our own political area here. And they maintain to some degree, still today, political independence from the Mexican state.
But they took arms in hand to do that.
They did, yeah, they did indeed.
They had to arm themselves to do that. Well, that's very very significant, Joshua. You got anything else you want to share with us?
No, I just want to say have a good morning and thanks for the analysis. Very interesting.
Thank you. Now, thank you.
Is that another caller over there? I don't want to keep somebody waiting.
Sure thing.
Okay, Anna. Good morning. Thanks for calling KNON.
Oh, great. Good morning. I'm new to this area, but I just experienced something, and you're just talking about exactly what I experienced. I went on a job interview, and I was the only American there actually applying for the job. And I was wondering, how is it that foreigners can come in the area and able to work these jobs? Are we required to hire them once they come in our country or let them come in? And we have all these other people waiting to work, literally young people waiting too.
Well,
so how did it happen?
That's a very complex question. One of the things that happens with trade agreements is that people are displaced from one part of the world to another. And I wouldn't want to necessarily look at the people who are in this country, with any hostility toward them, because I understand there's pressures on them that are created by the trade agreements. Let me give you an example with Mexico. Part of the NAFTA agreement was that American farm products had to be sold in Mexico, and this made it so that local Mexican farmers couldn't compete with agricultural products that were being produced in America and sent there. One of the reasons we had such a large number of people coming to our country looking for work is that the economics of how they were making a living were undermined by NAFTA. And this applies to people in other parts of the world as well.
Big agriculture in the United States literally drove all the Mexicans off of their farms.
Right. So these agreements they're putting in protections for powerful corporations, but they're undermining all kinds of working people. They're throwing us against each other, and so we're looking at the person who's from some other country trying to make a living here, and we're mad at them, but they're putting them under the same pressures that they're putting us under here. They're making us all compete against each other on a race to the bottom.
Right. Because I know a lot of people didn't even know about this particular position was available. Just so happened I ran across it. And when I went to the interview, I was the only one there was of America. Everybody was from all Saudi Arabia. And
how did it come out? Did you get the job?
I don't know. I'm waiting.
Still waiting
for a reply.
Okay. Well, best of luck to you, Anna, and thanks for calling KNON. I got a bunch of reasons here why people should call KNON and make a pledge. And I should have got to this sooner, but I better get to it now. One, for a $30 for a $50 pledge, you can get a gift certificate for dinner at the Garden Cafe gift certificate, and you get one of these first restaurants to have embraced the slow food movement. They're all organic and they don't use any pesticides. So go to the Garden Cafe with a gift certificate from KNON, make a $50 pledge and get that. Now this is one I'm kind of especially happy with because I live down by the Texas Theater. For a $30 pledge, you can get a pair of tickets, and for a $60 pledge, you can get a pair of tickets and a T-shirt from KNON. and go to the Texas Theater, get a movie pass. Actually, it's two passes to the movies at the Texas Theater. If you haven't been in the historic Texas Theater and you live in North Texas, well, you're behind, because you're supposed to check that out. There's a whole lot of good reasons to go to the Texas Theater. Call us at 972-647-1893 and get in on it. You can make a bank draft to KNON. Call us now. Tell us you would like to start a bank draft, and you get an expert on the phone there with you. You can do it with your checking or savings account. An automatic monthly draft will occur from your account. Now, this don't have to be $500. You could put a bank draft for $10 a month or $5 a month, something like that, and that would add up to a pretty nice pledge for KNON by the time a year goes by, and you won't even notice it. You select the amount to come from your account every month. Pledge $1 a day to keep KN on the air every day. That's only $30 a month, and it's drafted automatically, so you don't even find out about it. You can get a pair of tickets to every KNON benefit for an entire year. I don't know if you know, but KNON puts on 40 or 50 shows every year. Live music radio station. We play great music on your radio and bring great music to local stages. Don't miss any of our shows. I'm trying to figure out from this page how much of a donation you have to make to get the pledge. Oh, here, it's a $500 pledge. Your name plus one guest will be on a permanent guest list for all KNON benefits. So if you like to go to music concerts, they cost like the devil, don't they?
Oh yeah, definitely.
But
arm and a leg.
But KNON puts 40 or 50 of them on a year, and so for a $500 pledge, that means you're paying $10 for yourself and your sweetheart to go to these rock and roll, and it's not just rock and roll. This is a very eclectic station.
Not a bad deal.
They put on every kind of music there is. I already said the Garden Cafe. We got another one for the Company Cafe. You get a gift certificate for a $50 donation. This was on Lower Greenville, down where the smart people go. We'll be right back after this break.
Tell you all a story that's close to me. A worker who's leaning on a bended knee, soiled and tattered in search of relief, fighting for some unspoken belief.
KNON's Big Texas Blues Thanksgiving radio show is coming Thursday, November 28th. This is Blue Lisa, and I'm inviting you to be a part of this KNON Thanksgiving tradition. Tickets are at knon.org. Doors open at 8:30 a.m., and we go on the air live at 9 a.m. We'll have live music from the Reverend K.M. Williams, Holland K. Smith, KNON's own Greg Smith performing with J. Mack, James Hinkle, and Jackie Don Lowe. Alligator Cafe will serve the Chef Ivan Thanksgiving Special. Hurry and get your tickets. Seating is limited. It's a very special holiday live broadcast event in the KNON Live Music Studio. It's a great way to start your Thanksgiving day with your friends from Community Radio and the Dallas Blues community. This Thanksgiving morning at KNON, 5353 Maple Avenue in Dallas. Tickets available now at knon.org or 214-237-3003. This is a KNON benefit event.
Community radio provides the kind of programming you won't find anywhere else on the dial. Nowhere else can you find such a variety of formats and personalities in North Texas as KNON. But this is only possible through the support of our listeners. KNON depends on listener support to stay on the air. Now is the time for you to help keep this show on the air. This pledge drive will continue until the station reaches its goal. If you're waiting out the pledge drive, you might be waiting out the existence of this show on KNON too. So don't wait for someone else to do it. Without the support of the people like you, there wouldn't be any community radio on the air in North Texas. So take a few minutes and make a pledge. 972-647-1893. That's 972-647-1893.
I should have been a banker. And you should too. And if you are, write us a big check. But if you're not a banker, you can write us some kind of a check and send it to the KNON, 972-647-1893. Call and make a pledge. Or if you just want to send your pledge in, it's KNON at 5353 Maple Avenue, Suite 200, Dallas, Texas, 75235. You remember the guy, if you're as old as me, you'll remember there was a guy that played all night on the radio, and he would say, Del Rio, Texas. So I'm going to try to do that. I'll say, 5353 Maple Avenue, Suite 200, Dallas, Texas 75235. That was sort of like, you're not old enough to remember that, but they used kids used to listen to Del Rio, Texas, because the local stations were all sanitized. You couldn't get black music. You couldn't get black music on most of the radio stations, so you had to listen to WLAC in Tennessee. It was in Gallatin, Tennessee. Okay. Or you had to listen to Del Rio, Texas, if you wanted to hear anything with any guts in it.
Oh, okay.
972-647. You can hear music with guts on it here on KNON now, but you're just lucky, because when I was little in the 50s, you had to really know how to tune that radio to get Randy's Record Shop in Gallatin, Tennessee, if you wanted to hear any black music, because they just didn't have it. 972-647-1893. We are begging you to keep KNON on the air and keep Workers Beat as a part of it. We're doing something kind of unique. We do every Saturday when KNON comes on with the Workers Beat program. We talk about things from the working people's point of view. And Kenneth Williams and I were just saying that what the other side calls a free trade agreement, ain't free, it ain't trade, and it ain't no agreement. And
exactly.
It's a secret deal to benefit the corporations.
Exactly. And another thing about the Trans-Pacific Partnership, you mentioned banking a little while ago. The part of what the agreement will undermine are the regulations that came under the Dodd-Frank law. And so it will undermine those. It will also prohibit any kind of ban on risky financial products like your credit default swaps and mortgage-backed securities. And also, it will block having taxes, Robin Hood type taxes on financial transactions. One of the ways that a number of people who have said that we can raise more funds and revenue is there are a tremendous number of transactions that occur on Wall Street, and if you just tax it just a little bit, you can raise a lot of money, and the TPP will block that kind of thing.
That stinks, doesn't it?
It absolutely does.
Last year, KNON gave up 9 shows, and they already gave up Jim Schutz this year. Jim, if you're listening, I'm sorry. I mean, I loved your show. I listened, and I think a lot of intelligent people listened, but they didn't reach for their checkbooks when they should have, and they did not keep Jim Schutz on the air on KNON. We lost that show. We lost 9 shows in 2012, and unfortunately, the sad truth is that KNON used to be largely talk shows, and it is now almost no talk shows. In fact, there's only 3 talk shows left. Those are informative shows like the Workers Beat. If you want to keep these people on the air, then you have to pitch in, do your part, and call us and make a pledge at 972-647-1893. You have 3 months to pay the pledge, so you don't necessarily have to have the money in your pocket when you make a pledge. You just indicate your good intentions, and you'll have 3 months to pay it off, and then 3 months from now I'm going to ask you for money again, but it's assuming that I'm still here. So don't feel like you have to come up with the scratch right away. You make the pledge, and then you have 3 months to pay it off, and they'll send you postcards and stuff like that saying please finish paying off this pledge. That's how KNON makes it. You know, when they first started years and years ago, there used to be government subsidies, and they used to subsidize particularly for informative talk shows, and they don't no more. They have cut that off. The government is not friendly toward information for its people, and democracy is at stake. This is one of the main ways that your democracy is being undermined by the so-called free, so-called trade, so-called agreements. Kenneth Williams is here, and you're with Move On, right, Kenneth?
Yes, I am. I'm with Move On. One of the things I want to say about this agreement is some of our friends on the political right have been afraid of international treaties in general, things that are associated with the United Nations, for example. You remember a couple of years ago, there was a treaty associated with it was really based on the American for Disabilities Act, and they were going to go ahead and try to make that an international standard. In our Congress, the Republican Congress people rejected it on the notion that they don't want to be forced to do things by international treaties.
Oh, dear.
But when you look at the Trans-Pacific Partnership, it has way more impact in reality, because that law that they rejected was just the rest of the world saying we want to copy what Americans have already done. It wasn't making us do anything.
It's a class thing.
The Trans-Pacific Partnership is going to make you do lots of things, and it's not being discussed. It's being in secret, and once it takes effect, it's going to obligate us to pay huge amounts of money to corporations.
From the rest of our lives, and especially for the young people that have got longer lives to look forward to.
Exactly.
The same thing is true of labor law in general. The ILO is part of the United Nations. They have labor standards that apply to workers all over the world, but not here, because the United States Congress refused to recognize it. They said, "Oh, we don't want no foreign influences affecting our democracy."
Well, not if it benefits working people. They don't want international agreements. They will be happy to comply with international agreements that require protection of corporations.
It's a class thing.
Right.
It's a class thing. I can't say that too many times, because the truth is, when you analyze who is behind it and who is going to benefit from it, if you just follow the money,
yes,
you'll find a stinking corporation or a banker or an insurance company behind all of the bad things that happen just about in the political world. And if you find something that benefits working people, you'll find something that took a mighty army of people speaking up and doing something. Like, for example, civil rights.
Yeah.
You think the corporations want to give civil rights? You think the corporations just woke up some morning and said, hey, let's spend the extra money and start paying black people what they're worth? You know? No, that didn't happen. It took millions of people marching. It took people getting spit on. It took people getting hanged. It took people going to jail.
Yeah.
It took people suffering and real struggle of millions of people to make that democracy come alive.
Well, but see, that's the thing about democracy. Democracy is the only political system that requires participation by the governed. You can have a military dictatorship or a king, and everybody can sit back and not be involved. But you're not going to have a democracy and keep a democracy if you sit back.
If the corporations take over, it would be a plutocracy.
Exactly.
If the corporations take over everything, which they're well on their way toward.
Well, they're trying. When you look at things like Citizens United, which put more money into politics, and then when you look at the same time where you have the voter ID laws that are trying to take people out of politics at the same time, yes, that pushes you in that direction. But we have to push back. It was hard for us to get to the point where we are, and we're going to have to fight to keep our rights and also to push for it. We have to do it because, I mean, there's no alternative.
I've been watching the documentary on TV about the African Americans, Kenneth, and it is amazing to me what people endured and how some people would pop up, and start doing something. Generally, most of them were preachers back in before the Civil War. And Frederick Douglass, for example, he was not a preacher, but there were a lot of them that were preachers that would espouse a better world, and everybody else is just suffering through it. And for them to have come out of that and made something out of this country is just totally amazing to me.
Well, yeah, I mean, the odds were particularly against African Americans when you just look at the situation they were in. No real political resources, no money, outnumbered. And so, I mean, it's an example of just what can be accomplished when you have so much against you and you can still move forward. And that can inspire the rest of us.
We can take great pride in the struggles that people have had and the misery that they have endured, and the fruits of that, the democracy that we continue to enjoy in America today. But you can clearly see who don't want you to have that democracy.
Sure.
And in the case of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, it is very clear just who is on which side and doing what. And it's the corporations out to get you, out to hurt you, out to make you work for less money, and you didn't even mention pollution.
Oh, right.
Because that's part of these laws too.
Exactly. It will undermine environmental regulations because, again, that costs corporations money to do things in a clean way that doesn't damage the environment. And so they want to weaken those regulations.
So they will make up some of their own laws. And their own laws, you might have a law that says a cement plant cannot make it the air unbreathable in your neighborhood. I'm not sure they have one of those laws in Ellis County, but they have them some places where there's supposed to be some clean air, and the corporation's not supposed to overrun it. But if the Trans-Pacific Partnership goes through, and if there's a law in there that the corporations want, it's going to be, we can pollute all we want to.
Well, here's what would happen. If you try to enforce your environmental regulations and it costs the corporation money, they will turn around and sue the state government or the federal government in order to recover what they expected their profits to be.
In fact, under NAFTA, they actually can sue not because somebody got a broken leg or somebody got the nose broken or somebody got defamed or libeled or something. They can sue and just say, we lost money.
Right.
We lost profits. And that means that's our basis for suing.
And it's not profits that they actually already made, it's profits that they expected. They can estimate how much money they thought they would have made and sue you for that.
Let me go over the ways that you can make a pledge and keep KNON on the air and keep the Workers' Beat talking about defending your lives and your democracy. The easiest way, of course, is just to call right now, 972-647-1893, or you can call anytime. The station's on 24 hours, and all you have to do is when you make your pledge, you can just say it's for the Workers' Beat. So it doesn't have to be during this hour. You can call anytime, 972-647-1893. If you want to just send a check, if you don't want to talk on the radio and you don't want people to know who you are, if you want to be anonymous, you can mail your check to KNON, 5353 Maple Avenue, Suite 200, Dallas, Texas, 75235. If you are computer illiterate and you are sitting at your computer, you can get on knon.org, click on Make Donation, and then there's a little trick to this. You have to lie, because when they get to the part about what's your favorite show, you have to put Workers' Beat, otherwise we won't get credit for it. So if you want to donate to one of the other fine programs, that's fine. You just put that name of that program in there as this is my favorite program, and your donation will be credited to them, and then they'll stay on the air. But if you put Workers' Beat on there, we'll stay on the air, and I will like that even better. The only station you are going to hear how bad the Trans-Pacific Partnership is this station. The other stations, if they mention it at all, they're going to present it as something pretty good or something you can't do anything about. That's another good thing about KNON and the Workers' Beat program. We'll tell you what to do about it. Kenneth, give us some idea of what to do about the Trans-Pacific Partnership.
Well, first of all, I think you have to contact your congressperson, your senators, and the president, and let them all know that you've learned about this agreement and you have concerns about it. You want them to make it transparent. First of all, tell us what's in it. And we want to use the constitutional process of going through the House of Representatives and Senate and not using this fast track proposal in order to get it through. That's the first thing I would say to do. I would encourage people to become more educated about the TPP. Go online and Google it and learn about it, because this is something that's going to have a far bigger impact than anything we're talking about right now. We're talking about how the Obamacare website's down and all of that. This is going to have a much bigger impact, but because it's in the interest of the few, they're trying to sell it under the wire so that we won't know anything until it's a done deal. And they'll come to, it's a done deal. Can't do anything about it now. We're tied into the agreement.
Yeah, don't let KNONs talk about it, because we want to keep this secret. In fact, if there is a radio program that talks about it, let's try to get them off the air. Let's not have a program like the Workers' Beat on the air. So call us at 972-647-1893 if you want a worker's point of view to be part of your point of view. And I'm here with Kenneth Williams. What about Move On? Do you want people to sign up for Move On?
Oh, absolutely. Please go online and sign up for the Dallas Move On Council. Please join and become involved. We are focused on this issue and also on getting money out of politics and environmental issues as well.
How do they do that? Is it moveon.org?
Yes. If they Google for moveon.org, and then they can also look for joining a council. And look for the city of Dallas, and that will bring them to the Dallas Move On Council.
What if they want Kenneth Williams to come to their group and speak? Would you do that? I know you're not getting paid because you already admitted that.
Right. Well, I'd be willing to that. Depending upon what we're talking about and what the group is, certainly I'd be open to that.
You would explain the Trans-Pacific Partnership to any group?
Certainly.
Give them a chance to ask you questions and stuff like that?
Certainly.
Well, I would recommend it, too. I think Kenneth Williams is kind of a commanding personality. I'm pretty impressed, especially when I found out, as you found out a while ago, that he's not getting paid. There's he doesn't even work in any of these companies, or he's not even a union member. He's here strictly because it's the right thing to do. Is that right?
That's absolutely right.
Is that unbelievable or not? Call us at KNON 972-647-1893. Now, theoretically, that we're not going to have to do fundraising again next week, although we might. It just depends on whether or not they finish off that thermometer up there, whether or not they finish the fund drive or not. But for 3 months out of the year, we talk about everything that working people are interested in, and from the point of view of the working people. Kenneth, any last words? Because we're about to leave.
Okay. Again, just learn about the TPP. Tell your friends. Contact your congressman and the president. Let them know that this is something we don't want to happen.
Thanks so much for joining us. We'll be back next week.
KNON 89.3 FM in Dallas and Fort Worth, the voice of the people.
Business owners, tell KNON's listeners about your business. You can put your business or event on KNON. KNON currently has space available to run announcements for you. Tell KNON's listeners about your goods, services, nightclub, concert, or event. Help keep the voice of the people on the air while putting your information on the air. KNON's been named the #1 radio station in Dallas by both the Dallas Observer and D Magazine. Put your business with Dallas's #1 station. Call now for more information at 214-828-9500, extension 227, or extension 233. For more information, go to KNON.org and click on the Run Spots on KNON page. It's a great way for your business to support community radio while letting more people know about you.